Hello, Parsons students. This is your first weekly briefing for our Collab Design for Literacy class, where I'm going to give you kind of an overview of what is to be done this week and what we talked about yesterday in our first class. A big thank you to everyone for attending and kind of sitting through what was a lot of talking, a lot of downloading of information, and appreciate everyone's enthusiasm and attention, and looking forward to working with everyone this year and this semester on these projects, and to kick things off with a running start this week by beginning our first project, our baby board book project. And I just want to condense everything we talked about to give you a reminder of what needs to be done in this kind of briefing to-do list. So basically what we're going to be doing is creating a research concept deck. And that's going to be a presentation that you're going to make that's going to include some research that you do in terms of looking at existing baby books for design inspiration, for theme inspiration, for just overall kind of concept of what can influence you towards what is interesting and what might be effective in the way you create a book. And you do that in order to begin to come up with an idea, a theme, a concept for your book, like what will your book be about, and put that together into a presentation deck that we will share together on next Thursday's class. And as we talked about in our class last night, we can start off our research process literally with the books that have been created in the past in this class for this exact same assignment. And here you see just a collection of 9 of the books from that first class, which are all part of this square 16-page hardcover, hard-paged baby board book that's intended to be a book for newborns and infants and toddlers. And the idea is for you to kind of create one of these books that would be part of this collection, that would be in some form a book that engages not only a young child, but also inspires a grown-up reader, a caregiver, a parent, a grandparent, a babysitter, a sibling, to want to be able to engage with the book and give prompts for a verbal experience and a visual experience that has this book at the center of it. And when we look at what's in these books, I want you to each go to the YouTube channel and check out. There's more than just these 9. But what I want to kind of get out of this is that there's a real simplicity in these books. Once you have a concept like this, here's obviously creating education towards vegetables, or using vegetables as a way to create a verbal and visual experience, and one that has kind of like a funness to it. The simplicity of the text is, really intentional, to just simply put what each individual vegetable is, and then to create these like zany kind of characters that create sort of fun attitude, using the yellow background and kind of keeping a consistent look to it. So I think this is a good example of just doing something that doesn't have to be a hardcore heavy theme. There's so much to learn when you're first starting out, and it may just be in the way that you approach it and in the way you decide to kind of bring a certain kind of interest or edge to it. And I think this book does it pretty well. And then this other one is called Say What, and it's really about utilizing the idea of creating sounds through the sounds that insects and animals make. And then the sort of twist in the design here is to kind of utilize big fat type and kind of use this positive negative form where the actual animal illustrations are hidden within the words, the onomatopoeia sounds themselves, and utilizing the white space around it to show kind of these indices, footsteps or sound movements that were related to the animals. So even though it's quite simple, it does have a quite a smart, interesting look. And I'm talking about these details, and it's not so much that the details need to be noticed by the child, which they should be. And I think these little sort of spots and paw prints are something to kind of look at and notice, but in a way it also gives this elegant book presentation that a caring mother or father who wants to have everything be right gives them that kind of confidence that they're buying a book that is thoughtful and well executed. And I think that that goes a long way. And this here also takes animals as one of the prompts, but brings in feelings and creates sort of a feeling for each character, creates sort of this portrait that's on the left or the right, kind of switching every other spread, utilizes or assigns an emotion to each character and shows kind of the effect of that emotion within a portrait face, and gives kind of a rationale. He's scared because a thunderstorm is coming, calm because he's going to sleep, gives something to read out loud, and explains these really core basic emotions, and does it with this kind of consistent illustration style throughout. Another example where we kind of focus more on being a little more ethereal and a little more grown-up oriented is this book called Oh-Oo. And Oh-Oo basically uses that sort of cooing sound as the text, if you want to call it that, and then utilizes the form of the OH and the OOH to create these kind of illustrations from real life, and varies in scale and varies in kind of like what they're about. And again, this is something intended to kind of be a verbal thing where you can go, oh, ooh, oh, ooh, throughout. And it gives color and form and these kind of interesting little illustrations that will connect probably more to the grown-up, but in a way strategically that's the goal, like a book that is interesting and fun to read and gives a grown-up ability to kind of act and perform something out with these two simple sounds, and kind of keeps a focus towards what the result would be, but at the same time provides kind of like this elegant, fun book that has sophisticated illustrations that connect to the aesthetic of a modern 21st century parent. So look at more of those books on YouTube. I'll share the link, or I already have actually on Slack, and again, kind of analyze them and try to get a sense of what's working and a sense where you can fit in terms of your approach, your aesthetic approach. And let's kind of go over this again. We kind of thoroughly went over it last night, but just to remind everyone that there's a lot going on when trying to create a book for babies and for infants, because the younger the child is, the less there's any connection to a narrative story or any connection to listening to the words and understanding the words and getting a message out of it or getting a lesson from it. And it's more about beginning to cognitively develop different skills, to visually develop skills, to develop skills in hearing, develop skills in vocabulary. And in order to do that, the goal of the book needs to be much different than a book that tells a story. And some things to know just to help us understand is that we're sort of participating in the building of babies' brains, and we're using our book project to kind of be this sort of exercise mechanism that helps engage a mind, engage the sight, engage hearing in a way that begins to stimulate this kind of growth. And as we talked about last night, it is just amazing to see a newborn and to see the changes that can happen within a month or within even a few days sometimes, or within weeks, within a half a year, or even within the first year. It's a completely different person. And we acknowledge that sort of miracle of growth on the exterior quite easily because it's so easy to see. But what isn't really known so much is that that growth is happening even more within a baby's brains. The insides are growing more than the outsides, and the outsides are quite impressive the way they grow. So there's quite a bit going on. There's quite a bit that needs to be fostered and nurtured. And this is why the 15 minutes per day right at birth is something that becomes essential, because that internal growth needs to be stimulated, needs to be guided. And that's what Reading Together can do. So it's quite an important mission for the first days, the first weeks, the first months, the first years of a human's life. And in terms of like a design mission, this one's a pretty important one, and one that we can really focus on because of how much it matters to individuals who participate in your book. So again, to clarify the different stages within this sort of young humans, how do we classify them? We know newborns, we usually kind of think of them, newborn as like the day they're born, but technically it's like the first 2 months you're considered a newborn. And then from 2 months to a year, that's the infant stage. And then after the year, for the first year to year 4, you're a toddler. And that these stages are important to know because, as you can see, even within the illustration, different skills, different abilities are developed, and different understandings are set in place. And if you're designing a book, will you be focusing on this full experience? Will you be focusing on the older toddler experience where you can use words a little bit more, or use ideas more fully? Or are you going to stick to kind of basic elements that an infant or even a newborn can then begin to start hearing and seeing? So when creating a book, try to think about both the age of your child and how you want to sort of target it. There's no right or wrong answer, but if you're designing something, you might want to state like, I'm really interested in that sort of first 2 months with my book, and that's the main key. Or I want to focus on all these and kind of hit each milestone and be able to have something to offer for all of them. So think about that, as well as thinking about the parent or inspiring the reader to want to pick up the book and have it be their favorite book as well. So from birth to 12 months in the newborn and infant stage, it's all about getting understanding and growing into the idea of how sounds and words and then the feelings associated with those within the baby's experience, how to begin to understand that and get a grip on sort of these foundational principles. So keeping it basic within these elements of sound, word, and feelings is something you should focus on if you want to have your book be about that first year, and how the reading experience can enhance that first year. When it comes to vision, this is something that changes and develops throughout the course of a newborn to an infant to a toddler. And having to learn to see, having to understand what's being observed. So between birth and age 3, many of a baby's vision skills will be developed in those first 3 years. And then during the first 4 months of life, in the very first 4 months of life, your baby should begin to follow moving objects with their own eyes and be able to reach for things. So in that sort of early period, this is where movement can come in, and that might be a consideration for your book if it involves kind of gestures or pointing or directing from your book text to do something, to touch your nose, touch your eyes, like that kind of thing. Might be something to be interesting to do to get the participant to become more active and create a more dynamic experience that involves moving an eye and being able to exercise that. So when we look at newborns, the first month, beginning to read aloud to a newborn right after birth brings a benefit of establishing a family routine and nurturing kind of bonding time. And it helps a baby feel safe and, more importantly, loved, and beginning a routine that will help a baby be ready for school and life. So this routine of reading, making reading something that's joyful, making reading something that involves the family, involves being paid attention to, being listened to, being talked to. The book reading experience can be sort of the touchstone that allows that to happen. So this is something, if we can establish in the very first month, it can build throughout as a foundation for the person's life. Now, as we go further into the newborn experience, the first 2 months, babies at the first and second months love to see faces and make emotional connections with people. So the idea of like what faces do or what they mean, or focusing on that kind of emotional expression that we have in our faces with our eyes, nose, and mouth, ears. They listen, they feel in those first 2 months, and babies love books with real pictures in them, like photographs, and they like bold contrast. So these are things to keep in mind, and if you're targeting towards that newborn first 2 months. And again, when it comes to the kind of text, it's about really keeping it minimal, allowing the reader to have slow, exaggerated use of words that are read aloud. As we get older, like the 2 to 5 months of an infant, babies begin to verbally respond through cooing sounds. So they now begin to verbalize themselves with these very short syllable sounds, these kind of vowel sounds. By participating their sounds while reading together, babies figure out which sounds are important to learn and talk. So this sort of experiment of making sounds and getting responses and kind of editing through what's important, what means what. Also, teething begins. The teeth begin to develop at as early as 2 months, and that kind of stimulates them and wants to get them to taste and turn and hold and put their mouth on the books. So there might be interaction at that level. And then we get to the second stage of the infant stage, and the 5 to 9 months, babies will regularly say words like mama, dada, baba, and more. So these kind of 2-syllable words begin to appear, and babies are practicing consonants and new sounds to help them talk. So that might be a part of what you want your text to be about. From 9 to 12 months, babies will start to put their coo vowel sounds and babble consonant sounds together to make words. So near the end of the first, you might get first words. In terms of vocabulary, reading aloud together is important in developing a baby's vocabulary. So the more words they can hear, the better they begin to make connections and understanding to what words are and what they mean. Books selected when reading together should go beyond favorite books, and with selections made that provide new words and experiences. So again, that's the idea of having these various kinds of board books, is that they can provide new and different experiences that allow for unexpected words that aren't part of the daily kind of babies listening to come up because they're in the book. So think about that. It's like if you can bring up a unique subject matter where new words come in, then all the better. So benefits of sharing books with children. It provides sensory stimulation and support of brain development. So getting some kind of sensory stimulating the brain helps develop and trigger growth. It develops language. You gain knowledge of the world, how it works. So that, of course, is maybe more important as they get older, but there can be some element of that sort of like what is our world like, and how do we do things here? It creates a joyful and loving connection between babies, toddlers, and their loved ones. So again, I think that is just the key. This sort of the love the bonding that comes together when an infant or a toddler is read to, and utilizing the power of the family and the power of love is something that I really want us to focus on, and nurturing a love not only between human beings, but also just a love of books and reading, of course, as well, to help keep that inspiration lit for further growth throughout their life. So some subjects that you might want to consider that are important in the growth development for infants and toddlers. There are things like shapes and colors and faces and sounds, or animals, feelings, like things that go, places, letters, words, counting, numbers, people, food. So kind of like these really basic core things. And what I found, and if you study the books that are on YouTube, you might be able to dissect that a lot of these are just basically taking 2 of these things and putting them together. So it could be like food meets animals, or feelings meet vegetables, or it could be just a combination of 2 of these things that give you enough of a unique opportunity to create kind of this sort of theme or story that you're saying, or this little world you're developing within your 16 pages of a book. And speaking of that, as we talked about, because we're doing these in a way that is a set of books, and these books are about being kind of unified, and we're also having to utilize a certain kind of printing technology, these books all are going to be these square 5 5/8 by 5 5/8 books, kind of like handheld books, sort of the classic size, and they're all going to be 16 pages, and they're self-cover books. And what a self-cover book means is that the cover is no different in weight than the inside. So all the pages are equal. So they're all equally as thick. It's not like the cover is thick and the pages are thinner on the inside. It's a self-cover. They're all double thick covered books. And if you count from the cover as 1, and you go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and then in the back 16. So that's going to mean that there are a set of spreads that you can make, and then the front and the back is kind of like the last spread. So when mapping out your book, not this week, but next week, and we'll talk about this more, you need to make sure you have the right amount of spreads and the right amount set aside for the cover and the back. But that's not to be worried about yet, but just keep that in mind. And again, like we talked about, we can't do special things. We can't utilize production techniques like die cuts or a fold out page or a centerfold or whatever, and no special stamps or no like cool surfaces. All that stuff is amazing and great, but it's not within the technology that we have. And in a way that's fine, because I don't want to be relied on these kind of like little tricks or like little shiny objects. I want the beauty of these books to be in the simplicity of the idea and the elegance of the execution that you create in terms of the style of the design and how you lay this out and bring it together. So this is a sort of overview now of exactly how to do the assignment. The first step in our process is to create a research concept deck. And the goal of this is to lay the foundation to basically get you immersed into what this project is, to get you you already are based on last night's lecture and what you're watching right now, but to get you fully immersed into this, get an understanding of who you're doing this for, for DIRT, what this the goal of the organization is, what the goal of the brand is, who the audience is, what is it that DIRT is trying to do, and then to understand the assignment and repeat that, and then to begin showcasing without any burden of having to come up with a design. Just create a set of case studies, and a case study is taking a book that you find and or a project you find, but it's a book in this case, and be able to kind of showcase it visually and pull out key elements that are interesting and inspirational to you that might help inform how you approach your design. And again, it's not only meant for your own kind of inventory or your own ability to begin to think, but it's also there to help share and help create an understanding to the audience, myself, your classmates, and giving them the story of what you're trying to do and the things you're observing and how you're bringing them together to form a concept. And that's a key thing as a designer, because it's part of how you're able to kind of utilize teams, work with people to inspire them, to help them understand, to help them support you, to help them approve, to help them fund you. In the real world, it's about being able to convince people to do something that they might not know what it is until they hear it from you. And that's a big part of the design process, is making your case, being able to express what it is you want to do, get people enrolled in it, and get people to feel like they're part of it before, it's something you've already done and it's already like, here it is, I've already done it, please approve it. But if you're able to do a presentation like this, then people feel like they're engaged, they're part of the process, they're contributing in a legitimate way, they're giving feedback to you that's helping you as well. So that's the kind of goal of this deck, is to help foster that connection between myself and you and your classmates in your small group. So create a presentation deck that showcases research and your concept statement, which is at the end. But first we present DIRT on the second page. You present the assignment on the third page. You showcase 3 examples, one example per page of existing baby books. And it doesn't have to be a board book, just any baby book that has, or any child's book that has visual or concept or text or theme elements or type elements that you like, that are inspiring. You present a design inspiration mood board. Now here's where you kind of take the idea of techniques and illustration or typography or color, and you put them together. And these can come from any source. They don't have to come from other children's books. They can come from any design source that inspires you, or even yourself, your own techniques. So you do that with illustration, with color, with typography. And you create a few pages that lay out that inspiration, so you can kind of express how you want the direction of your design to be. And then the hardest part here is going to be to write that concept statement, or to not just write it, but to come up with a concept that you can express what you want your book to be about, and the way, and it should be as direct as possible, so that if someone reads it and listens to it, they understand what the book's going to be about. And of course, very important, the last page must always be a thank you page. You must always be grateful. I'll never forget that. Here's an example of a close-up example of someone's research concept presentation. Again, create a format that you're comfortable with. And if you want to utilize DIRTs, I put in the Canvas at the very bottom, there's a link of an InDesign file. It might be a little old now, but you can literally download that and use that. And if you want to work in InDesign, and that it's all set up, just use it and you don't have to worry about designing it. But you have a cover page with the assignment, with the overall assignment, with the project, and then the assignment for that week, and the date, your name maybe, or your name for sure. So again, go and on Canvas, like the text is on Canvas, go on our website, wherever you want to find it, find a way to write out what DIRT is, show a visual. Doesn't have to be this big, like whatever you want, but kind of find a way to be able to say, this is who DIRT is, and what the organization is doing and how we're fitting into this. Reiterate the assignment, be able to say, like, this assignment is to create a baby board book that's going to inspire toddlers, infants, newborns, and be able to inspire reading at early ages, and kind of be able to say what the assignment is, and then have your 3 case studies that showcase existing children's books, and talk about the key attributes on the text here, just what the things that you find interesting or inspiring and what we're seeing here, and do that 3 times. And then create these kind of mood boards that are curated to show the things that you're interested in terms of visual techniques, illustrations probably being the key, or photography or collaging if that's what you're doing. But find existing artwork that's out there that you find in cool websites or design inspiration sites, or even utilize your own illustration if it's something, obviously you're going to be doing your own illustration. So if there's past work that you've done, show that, and then also do the same when it comes to typography and color and other visual graphic elements. And then the big thing here at the end is to write a concept statement that that showcases your idea and creates that vision. And if you're at this point and you're struggling and you're not quite sure what it is, don't freak out. Like, this could be not completely finished and thought through. And what we could do in our meeting on Thursday is go through your other pages for this to help clarify. Oh, okay, like if I see what you're doing, I can say, oh, what I'm seeing here, this should be your concept. So in a way, it's almost not wrong if you don't have this fully figured out, but you should have enough of the stepping stones to get us almost there. And then we can talk about it on Thursday in our meeting. And then of course, have a thank you page. So again, we're gonna go through this idea of making a concept deck. I put the words here that are literally from the Canvas assignment. So there's too many words to go through right now, but let's go through this. You're gonna have a cover page with your name and date. You're gonna overview DIRT's social mission and goals. You're gonna create an overview page that summarizes the assignment and intent of this presentation, and then 3 case studies, concept inspiration on text and illustration and color, and then your design concept statement, and then a thank you page. Once you're done with that, create it in the form of, it could be a PDF, it could be Google Slides, it could be a PowerPoint, but some kind of like horizontal on the screen, 16 by 9 or whatever, like this fits on the screen, not a phone screen, but fits on a landscape screen. I will share some past decks in a folder on the Google Drive on this page here. I don't have it here now. I just realized I should have done this, but I'll put another folder on here that's got like resources, and it'll have a folder with past baby board concept decks that you can kind of look through and pirate through and get inspiration. And don't be afraid to learn from looking at other people's work. It's not wrong. What's wrong is if you copy their work and do the same thing, but it's not wrong to see what they're doing and then use that as a guide. Like, we build on each other's work. And then on the Canvas, this is just a snapshot of it, but basically I've got pretty thorough explanation of everything that has lots of text. And this is probably the biggest Canvas assignment I'll make, but it'll help you understand dirt more, and it'll showcase our first baby board books, the little letter book and little number book, and give you resources for the template and the Google Drive link, and lots of other things. So make sure you read that. And I guess I can't ask you for questions because you're not here, but hopefully you don't have any questions. And if you do, reach out to me via Slack or via email, and I can clarify things for sure. So don't sit there confused. If you're still not sure, reach out to me. So thanks, everyone. Look out for an email later in the week where I'll be assigning everybody for our next class. What I want to do is have you each spend about an hour in class, with 1/3 of you meeting in the first hour, another third of you meeting in the second hour, and the last third of you meeting in the third hour. If someone has a specific need where it would be more ideal to meet in the first part or the last part or the middle part, let me know at some point soon, and I'll try to accommodate that. But the idea, though, is going to be for the other 2 hours that you're not meeting, that's time for you to be working independently on your own, whether it's, well, we won't be in class next week, we'll be on Zoom again. But so that's the key, that you utilize that time to further your work. So, all right, everyone, have a great week, and let me know if you have any questions. Take care, everyone.